too small?
I got it.
Thank you so much.
One second. I gotta adjust this so you can see share.
I don't want to see me.
Nope, you gotta. Your requirement.
Okay, call to order the special meeting, the Township Board financial meeting. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Sherry Gasper,
Jake.
board member.
Jason Jikas, board member.
Tom Snowden, board member.
Cody Reynolds, Winfield Township trustee. And then, Mr. Board President, will you verify or attest that there are no other members of the public present?
There's no other people are present. We'll move on with our meeting.
Hold on one second. Okay.
There's no old business.
Well, hold on, sir. You're not the president of the board tonight. Jason
Okay.
Johnson, so he gets it before you get the. He gets it right now.
Okay, I'll turn the meeting over to Jason, financial officer.
Okay. First thing on the agenda is the financial review and the year-end budget balances. Year-end budget balances.
Also, just for the purpose of the meeting, we should also reattest that there are no factors, no old business.
Yes, no old business.
Okay, before we go any further, we won't do this during the meeting. If you want to make a change to your W-4, that form is in there. If you'd like, you can also fill that out after the meeting and you can look at what you did for last year.
If we don't need to change, just leave it on file.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so for the 2025 financial review, we are going to start first with the budget balances. That's going to be the staple sheet that looks like this. Should be the next full item in your packet. What this is fund by fund. It shows you what we started with in the budgeted column. It has the 2026 projection. It has any year's extents. So, budgeted, next year expected, expensed, remaining. And remaining both by dollar and percent. That top one is the roads fund. That was the new one. We don't have any money in there. We're not putting any money in there. So that one's zero across the board. You're looking at the right one, Sherry. If you turn the page, and if you look at the top, you'll see it says projected budget statement for 0061 rainy day fund. So again, this is for the calendar year of 1/1 of 25 to 12/31 of 25. You can see that we budgeted $15,000, that we budgeted another $15,000 for next year in terms of year-to-date expenses. So really the whole expense for calendar year 25 was $14,594.29, which means we only had $405 left from last year's budget in that fund. Obviously, the big expenditures there really came because we were using that to pay for township assistance. We had that. Any questions on that one? Next, if you turn the page, we have projected budget statement for Township General Fund, which is 0101, again for calendar year 25. There's a lot of numbers on this page. Suffices to say that including our additional budget appropriation, we had budgeted $277,707. If you look at that budgeted column, that's the very bottom number, if that's helpful to you. If you look in the next one that says 2026 project, which means projected, we've budgeted $246,221 for next year. And then if you look in that year-to-date expense, again, that total is $230,663.02, which means that off of last year's budget, we had $47,043.98 remaining. That is a lower amount than normal, but we spent a lot last year, right? We spent a lot on the roof and a lot of the other things that we had fixed and implemented throughout the year, particularly out of the general fund. Any questions about the general fund? Okay. And again, this is budget. This is not cash balances. It just says, how did we do compared to what we budgeted, including that additional budget appropriation. Projected budget statement. The next page is for 0401, which is the donations fund. Again, we budgeted $11,000. Next year, we budgeted $12,000. And the amount that we've expensed year to date was $10,972.68 for a total of $27.32 remaining. Came pretty close on that one. Last year we had about 1,000. But I will also say that that shows not only the price of goods, the cost of the increase, but also the increase in the number of people we're serving. The next page is the projected budget statement for the Direct Assistance Fund, or 0840. Again, for calendar year, you can see here that we budgeted $30,000 for this year. We budgeted $32,500 for next year. We spent all of this, what the budgeted amount, full $30,000 this year, and we have $0 remaining at the end of last year in that budget. We had more in the fund, of course. Any questions on that? Next page would be the firefighting and EMS. So this is the 1111 fund. This is the firefighting general fund. You can see here that there's a little bit more going on than on some of the other pages. We budgeted $482,800 last year. For next year, we budgeted $526,108. Excuse me. In terms of year-to-date expense, we spent about $475,378 of that. So we had just over $7,421 left in that fund, particularly in the other services and charges fund, which is really just kind of a catch-all category that we created to deal with unexpected or small costs that we weren't expecting to incur through our contract with them. Any questions on that? Okay. Next page is the 1190 fund, which is cumulative fire. Again, this is for all of last year. We budgeted $131,250. That was higher because of the the additional budget appropriation, as well as the planned vehicle expenditure we had at the beginning of last year. So you'll see there much smaller spend from this coming year, about $80,000 year to date expensed, literally every single dollar in the Q fund. So, and that's again because of the contract, the vehicle expense, the extraneous expenses that we've incurred through the fire department this year for a variety of station and other asset fixes, in addition to the purchase of said vehicle. So you'll see that we came out even on that. Any questions? Okay. For the Parks and Recreation Fund, which is 1312, you'll see that last year we budgeted $21,000. Next year we budgeted $24,700. We expensed about $18,062, which means we had about $2,900 left in the fund. Particularly, this was the supply lines. Next year's amount is up because we plan, as we all know in this room, or this year's expenditure, excuse me, is up because we plan to do that restoration of the parkland there, the community center at Winfield. So part of that funding is for that, and then some other minor building fixes. Any questions on Parks and Rec? Okay. And then our last fund is the Lloyd Fund, which is the 7777 fund. Two things here. It's either public safety, which is the bulk of the funding, or the streetlight program, which is a subset of public safety. As you'll see here, we budgeted $45,000, which was $41,000 for public safety and $4,000 for the streetlight program. We spent $30,554 for a remainder of $14,453 on the year. And next year we've lowered that expenditure, $34,000. We just did that again because we knew we were going to have some of those higher expenditures this year. We can always bring money forward, but we were trying to save money to get us back above, or to stay above rather, that $100,000 threshold in terms of cash balances. Any questions on that? The one thing I don't know yet, because I haven't seen the latest bill for the streetlights for this year, is how much that's gone up. I know that the meter readers in Leroy are either in the process of being updated or have just been updated. And the reason I say that is that that could mean that for those streetlights that aren't grandfathered in, there's a handful of them that those rates might change. Now, we have plenty of money in that fund to pay for it, so I'm not worried about incurring costs we can't pay for. I just can't tell you exactly what those monthly bills will look like for some of those just yet. As soon as I have a better idea, I will certainly share that with you. Any questions on any of the budget balances? Okay, so as you can see, we ran pretty tight on the budget, and there's two things. One, part of that's intentional. For everything outside of the general fund, we try to run pretty close. I don't like having a lot of excess funds left in the budget because I want to see those cash balances grow. But we still spent more this past year than I would have liked. So looking especially with SEA 1 in mind to see a reduction in expenditures going forward this year. Next, I will do the cash balance, the fund cash balances for year to date. So that's just the next single sheet there in your packet. If you look, you have the fund names there in the column on the left. You have the beginning cash balance in that second column there. Year-to-date receipts, year-to-date disbursements, and then cash balances versus the currently invested and the total cash balances. So again, this is what I'm saying. It reflects the total, like I said. So this is everything combined. Again, there's nothing in the Township Roads Fund because we haven't put anything in there yet. On the rainy day fund, we began the year with $40,951 in it. We expensed $1,500. Something's off with that. That should be 15,000, not 15,250. I'm going to have that checked before we approve the AFR. Just know that that's a question mark, but we can edit that in the system. We expensed $14,594, so the cash balance remains $41,606, but that's including the extra $250. So the cash balance should really be.
15,200.
Yes, I know, but that $250 in there shouldn't be that. That should just be 15,000 flat. I don't know where the $250 comes from. So my point is that cash balance is really going to be about $250 less. So just know that. You want to make a note there for yourself. You'll get an updated one at the AFR meeting. But this is why we do this at this one, is we can go through and catch any issues. I'm sure that was just an entry issue when we did the transfer. Township General, we began the year with $325,602.42. On the year, we receipted $218,715.23. We expensed $245,663, as you saw on the earlier page. So we've ended the year with that $298,672 in Township General. So more than we needed for a full year, even if we weren't going to get a single extra dollar, which of course we will. Donations fund, we began the year with $44,707. We receipted $6,050 into it. We spent just shy of $11,000. So our cash balance total at the end of the year was $39,784.77. One of the things that we are going to work on this year is increasing our fundraising for that, just so we can keep the healthy balance. We don't continuously see that reduction. Without really making an effort to the community, we are obviously fundraising about half of it back already, so I don't imagine it will take a huge amount of time to kind of correct that trend, but just know that's something we are watching. For township assistance, we began the year with $33,998. We receipted $19,299 into it. We expensed $30,000, so the remainder currently in that fund is $23,297.62. Firefighting and EMS, we began the year with a cash balance of $478,517. We receipted $648,273. We dispersed $475,378, and we now have an available cash balance of $651,412.28. Cume Fire, we began the year with $358,652. We receipted an additional $149,279. We dispersed $131,250 from that fund. Therefore, our current cash balance, our end of year cash balance, was $376,681. For Parks and Rec, we began the year with $30,444.87. We receipted $15,460.59. We dispersed $18,000.62. So that's pretty cool, because that $15,460 represents two numbers. That represents the total amount of new tax revenue that we apportioned to it, plus everything we earned out of the rental fees. So that means we're very, very close to having the right formula, if you will, to make, in theory, the community center pay for itself with just a minor amount of tax dollar injection. So I think that's good. because we're getting closer to that balance that we wanted. So all of that said, the ending cash balance for the end of last year for Parks and Rec was $27,843. And then the Lloyd Fund, we began the year with a total of $82,234.82. We receipted an additional $55,379 into that fund. We expensed $30,554.37. We now have a grand total, a cash balance of $107,059.45. And then the payroll deductions one works off of the general fund, so I really want to explain that one because I'm not sure I could. But all told, for the cash balance and investments at the beginning of the year, we began 2025 with $1,395,431, and we ended the year with $1,568,522. So even with all those expenditures, we still saved the taxpayers some money in terms of planned expenditures in future years or just further operating funds for different programs. And then you can see there it does account for that $15,000 transfer as well. So any questions about that for me other than the one I circled about that receipt of $250? Okay. Next, in your packet, it's going to look like a handwritten log. So a couple things. I'm going to kind of go between that and the document behind it just so you can see here. So the purpose of what you have here is you're looking at the top sheets of the debit card transaction log. What this is because the township has a debit card, and in theory, any of the approved signers, which is just myself, could go and make unauthorized purchases, if you will. Now, I will argue that it is harder to do that with the debit card than it would be with the township credit card, because on the debit card, one, the transaction automatically ends up on the bank account statement, so it would be impossible to reconcile our bank accounts each month if I weren't reporting certain transactions through that. But two, with the bank, I think it's easier to get away with unethical activity with the credit card. However, and we've actually seen this in townships across the state. Some of the township trustees who are no longer in office for good reason were using, for instance, in many of these cases, a township credit card to pay for things they shouldn't have. They were then hiding these credit card statements and just paying them on behalf of the township themselves. And so there was no oversight of this. And so some of these instances, this went on for years. In one instance, Columbus Township, where Columbus, Indiana is, this went on for 8 years. And in fact, that gentleman just went to jail for 28 years off of it. And that was well over $1 million of public funds that he misappropriated. So because other townships have fallen into some bad activity because of this, I always feel like we should move to improve our internal controls and improve transparency and accountability. So now 2 things. Number one, as I indicated before, we enter into Tom's Web all of these transactions monthly, really in real time as they happen, right? So in theory, you would have seen all of these transactions in each of those monthly disbursements reports you get. However, depending on the date, so an example of this is, let's say we had a meeting like tonight where it's on the 26th. Let's say for some reason there's a transaction that gets pushed through on the 28th, and your next month meeting is only going to be from February 1 to February 28th, 29th. There may be a day or two throughout the year that wouldn't have been included in that month-to-month report. So what I would like to do is show you the full log, which is the papers you have. And there's about 89 transactions on the year. So honestly, out of our hundreds and hundreds of transactions we do in a year, this is a very minimal amount. But all 89 transactions are there. I also have, and normally this is in a nice binder. We're actually getting ready to put this away in terms of our archived paper that we keep for audits and such. So it's not in the nice binder right now, but I do have all the corresponding receipts here saved. So what I would like for the board to do is take a minute or so, look at this. If there's any questions about anything you have, ask it. Not only will I answer, but I'll let you see the actual receipt because all of them are here. And then at the end of this, what I would like to have happen is the board to make a motion similar to what has been drafted there for you which would be simply to signify that you have reviewed the credit card or the debit card transaction log, and that you not only have reviewed it, but you approve the contents therein for the purpose of public record. And so, one thing that I should note is while the township does have a credit card, we haven't used it. I've never used it the entire time I've been in office. We paid it off in my first month that I was in office because it was something that was held over from my predecessor. So that's a 0. So that's why you don't have a credit card log. It's because we don't have any. But otherwise, the only other thing I'll add is that this debit card transaction log was made to be in line with state regulatory and Indiana code requirements regarding debit card transactions. So again, the state has minimum requirements necessary for keeping track of all of this information. We believe that Tom's Web actually suffices in that respect. It's part of why it was built. But again, because we always want to go above and beyond, Barb and I, and again, I'll give credit to Barb, our office manager here on this, we created this log and the accompanying binder to it. So again, I know that's kind of just a lot of different transactions on a page. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. As you'll notice, a lot of these are food pantry related because when I go and I need to buy food for our food pantry, I use our debit card. You'll see there's a lot of online transactions, again, usually related to setting up travel, because again, it's a lot easier to make an online payment with a debit card versus an e-check. And then you, again, will see some supply type transactions on here, as well as Zoom, which it's the Zoom account that the township keeps on hand as well. The only other kind of category I think I would add is that on occasion I do purchase supplies for the community center, rock salt, garbage bags, paper towels, etc. Through this, we do try and get most of that through Modrak, which is our paper and ink supply vendor that we buy all the supplies for this building out of. But occasionally we run out without advanced knowledge, and I have to run it and grab a few. So, is there any questions?
No.
Is there anything in here that looks off to you, or you can't tell what it is just by looking at it?
No, none of this. Just in general question, you had said about the credit card reporting was a difference. Obviously, I think if you were doing it, you'd do something similar to this.
Correct.
But are the receipts not required for credit cards?
So what's not required under state law or any type of accountability regulations is the actual production of the credit card statement to the board.
So that doesn't have to be.
Technically, the township trustee is not required to show the credit card statement to the board. Now, granted, I think that's bad practice, and I think if somebody refuses to show you that, that's an automatic flag that there's a problem, right? And again, obviously something I would do differently. The other side, though, is when I say that there's a different process for entering it, what I really am referring to is how we put the transaction into Tom's Web. Because you can't put that transaction into Tom's Web until after you paid the credit card statement. Whereas when you do the debit card, you enter it almost real time because it comes out of the account that much faster.
Tom's Web doesn't allow like a pending to go in there.
Right, not like that, no, because it's all based upon the fact of when you actually pay the statement. Right. So that's it. It wouldn't get there. It would just be a delayed response. And you would have to enter it as a payment to the debit card, or the credit card vendor, which would be sent here, rather than as what it shows on here as a direct payment to said vendor, whatever it might be. So 2 things. Number 1, it gets in there quicker. So if the transaction was made in that month, it's much more likely that you're going to see that paid off in that month versus maybe a delayed transaction process. And then the second part would be you're actually going to see what we're purchasing it for, rather than just saying we paid off our credit card, which is the payment 2 cents here.
Right.
So I think it's a little bit more transparent.
Is there like an expense report that has to go with that credit card?
Oh yeah, so there is a whole set of like everything that we have to keep that goes with it. So again, every credit card statement, everything, we have to keep that for record. It's just strangely enough, unlike how the township board is required to review and approve all contracts and everything like that, there's a hole in that law that doesn't say we have to show you that that credit card statement. And so that's I'm trying to show that we are acting well above that and very transparent, and that even though the fact that we don't use a credit card one, we have this debit card transaction log. And even though, like I indicated, you all would technically and in theory have seen all of those transactions, or at least the vast majority of them in your monthly reports, this is another opportunity to see it all at once in front of you, look at the types of transactions we make through the debit card, etc. And then just to make it public record that you in fact reviewed it and approved it in a public meeting. That's a good question. Anything else though on that?
Is there anything policy-wise for when all of us aren't here?
So there is actually, this was before you came in. My first year as trustee, we reapproved the township's policy on credit card and debit card usage.
Right.
We did this because at the time I wasn't listed on the account anyway, and so we went through and when we updated that, we re-updated all the policies because part of it was at that time my predecessor had a credit card. At that time, Cynthia was in the middle of changing credit card companies, so rather than reissuing me one, they were basically like, wait. Which is why they then offered the debit card. And while the policies had debit card and credit card used almost interchangeably, we went in and just fixed it a little bit, made it clearer. But we repassed that in 23. So yes, there are standards in place.
Just want to make sure we need to update something.
Sure. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, the only thing like that, unless we were changing something, and that's a very good point. The only thing like that we would have to do is like when we have to renew our line of credit through Cynthia, which we just did last year, so we don't have to do it again until next year. But yeah, unless there was a state law change, or unless we found an inconsistency or some issue within that policy that we wanted to change, those just stay year to year. It's one of those ones where you just check a box online on the gateway to say we have a policy in place, and then should there ever be a question about it during one of the audits or centralized engagements, as they now call them, the State Board of Accounts will just come looking for that. Again, good question. Any others on that? Okay, I do realize that I missed one of the bullet points under that, but it's the easiest one. Bullet point 3 under the 2025 financial review was indebtedness of the township. The great thing about that is the township doesn't have any debt. It's a big old goose egg zero. We'd like to keep it that way. We intend to keep it that way. But just, I did miss that because I jumped right to the debit card log. So I wanted to make sure I did say that because a report on the indebtedness of the township is one of the required components of tonight's meeting. Okay. Moving out of the financial review, unless there are any other questions on the financial review. All right. So the next item would be consideration of resolution number 2026-4, which is a resolution approving the annual asset report. I will quickly read it.
Do you need a motion?
Oh, yes, I did. I'm sorry. Yes, going backwards to the debit card log. Yeah, you don't have to read the proposed part. You can just make a motion to.
I'll make a motion to a proposal motion for the debit card transition log.
Is there a second? Sure. And any discussion? All right, let's call a vote. All those in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
And then anyone against? Unanimous.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so like we said, under the second item under new business, a resolution approving the annual asset report. This is resolution number 2026-4. Whereas the Winfield Township Advisory Board serves as a legislative body of Winfield Township, Indiana, and whereas according to Winfield Township number 2016-2, the township trustee shall submit an updated annual township asset report to the township legislative body annually prior to the submission of the annual financial report. Now therefore be it resolved by the advisory board of Winfield Township that the township legislative body has determined to the best of their ability that the following pages of the annual asset report attached are true and accurate for fiscal year 2025, The total sum of all township assets is approximately $1,665,368.39. Passed and adopted by the Advisory Board of Winfield Township on this day, which would be the 26th day of January, 2026. Now, before I hand it back to the board for your review and discussion and ultimate vote, I would just encourage you to turn the page and look at the 2025 actual Winfield Township Asset Report. This is almost entirely identical to last year because what we've really been working on since I've come in is making sure that everything's included. We actually do go above and beyond by including anything under $5,000 in value other than all of the property. But truth be told, when I came into office, not all the property we own was actually located on this list, nor were all of the different or required pieces. So for instance, not all of the storm and tornado sirens were on here either. The biggest change from last year to this year is the fact that we put the roof on this building, which does increase the value of this building. After looking at it and adjudicating the actual cost of the roof, which is about $100,000, state appraisal and state appreciation values are about 60 to 70% of the cost. So we added $60,000 onto the value of this building. So you can see there we have that under the bottom of the page where it says property and it shows this address, the 10645 Randolph Street, shows the value of the land, it shows the building, that where it says building right there, $979,200. That's the number that changed. We added $60,000 to that. Everything else on this page is pretty much the same. So again, you would add the value of all of our items. So the smaller assets that you have at the top, plus the value of the land and the buildings that we the township own. And so building contents plus property equal the total estimated value of township assets, which again was $1,665,368.39. Does the board have any questions about that?
What about the tables and chairs in these community centers?
So those haven't been put on here. Truthfully, they are so inexpensive that they're not required to be. And to be honest with you, I don't think we have a clear count on how many tables or how many chairs are down there. I know there's 12 tables. Given that there's 3 different types of chairs down there, I can't actually tell you how many chairs are down there.
It says tables and chairs conference room. Is that this room here?
No, the
No,
conference
little
room, it's going to be the little
So this
conference
is
room.
the town's. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept resolution 2026-04.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And any discussion? And vote, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And all those against? It passes unanimously.
Awesome. All right. Give this around here. Signing that for me. I appreciate that because, as you all know, that's done. We'll present the full annual finance report at the next meeting, which is really the announcement, which will be February 9th, 6:30 in the same room. And that's because the AFR is due by the 17th, or maybe it's the 19th, but the 17th, which is that next Monday, is a holiday, the President's Day or whatever, I think, right then. So we're meeting the week before that to ensure it's done. Thanks, sir. All right. Well, that's all we had under new business. So like I said, we'll move into announcements. Our next meeting is the annual financial report, or the AFR meeting. That will be held on Monday, February 9th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. here at the Winfield Township Government Complex. Other than that, that is all I have. So I'll hand the meeting back over to our Finance Board Chairman for any additional reports and adjournment.
There's nothing else on the agenda. So anybody Anybody else have anything they'd like to discuss? If not, then follow me, call for a closing meeting at 19:06.
What is it?
7:06.
Folks, one second, we're live.
Don't